Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. That's still my email. It is still in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing. In 2015, a historic name, Czapek, roared back into the arena. A upstart brand based on the name of one of the original business partners of Antoine Norbert de Patek. Czapek, as a modern revival, is a hip indie that launched with this, the Bergues model. And this is the reference 19S. It's called the number 19S model, and it was part of a series labeled Eternite. A little bit more on that in a moment. So there are several different dials, handsets, cases, and materials. The Bergues is actually a fairly large family of watches that are not identical or interchangeable. And this is one of the most wearable in steel, 38.5 millimeters in diameter. It's 11.1 millimeters thick in what they describe as their revolution case design. From lug tip to lug tip, 45 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. And then you throw it on the wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. Very comfortable. It's a short 45 across the wrist, so this can be worn by wrists as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. You can see down the barrel just how much clearance I've got on each side, as the lugs don't come anywhere near the edge of my wrist, and it's a fairly flat watch with a domed bezel and sapphire, so it should slide easily underneath a dress cuff. This is actually one of the few Czapek watches that I would endorse equally for men and women, and it's down to the 45 millimeter lug-to-lug and the 38.5 millimeter case size. The strap is high grade. You can see it is Czapek branded with rubber inlay on the bottom to separate the large rectangular scale alligator leather from the moisture, heat, sweat, and grit of the wrist. Now, this is large symmetrical scale, rectangular scale alligator. This is the best cut of the hide and the most expensive. It's what you want to see. Matte finish, dark blue, though not quite as dark as navy. You can see we have a broad folded edge, a monotone stitch. We do have curved spring bars so that the lugs can be drilled close to the case for better ergonomics, but without any impediment to the motion of the strap. We also have pull tab spring bars down there, so you can pop the strap off without tools. We have a buckle that includes 3 different types of finish, so the attention to detail is superb. We have polishing, we have brushed satination, and then on the bottom, we have Media Blast. The case is all of high polish, and you can see the lugs are gently stepped out from the case band. The case is rounded, polished, with the overlapping flange of the case back and the bezel, forming the defining lines of the mid-case. If you look very carefully, you can see that the flange face of both bezel and case back, those are satinated to contrast with the polish of the bezel, the case back, and the mid-case. So there's a little bit of satination in there. You can see that the lugs are quite nicely sculpted and complex when viewed. You can also see that the watch includes, I wouldn't call them crown guards, but maybe braces or shoulders surrounding the crown, which features 1845, the year that Czapek struck out from his former business partner and created his own brand. And then it is a relatively narrow and sharply knurled crown that is a pleasure to operate. The watch really is a pleasure to set and to wind. The domed bezel giving way to a cambered sapphire over a sterling silver dial. So the dial is made of a solid disc of sterling silver. It's then silvered white, silver on silver, believe it. So this silver white is applied, and it has a frosted or opaline pattern. If you look carefully, you can see that we have radially arrayed Roman numerals, a railroad track outboard for reading the individual minutes. We have a running seconds display, and then opposite of that, we have a power reserve indicator that also works as a French language day of the week indicator. So the idea being, if you let the watch run down and then you fully wind it on the first day, which is Sunday right there, then this power reserve indicator will also work as a day of the week indicator. And you can see the power reserve starts at 7 and then works its way down to 1, and the week starts at Sunday and it works its way all the way to Saturday on the opposite side. That is when you will rewind it and reset. Now, we have the fleur-de-lis blued hands here. They're long, they're graceful, they're needle-like, and they come to a fleur-de-lis flourish at the end. We do have a hacking or stop seconds function, and yes, we have little fleur-de-lis on the sub-dial hands, which are stepped downward into the dial. On the back, the SXH01 movement, designed for Czapek by movement house specialist Chronode, which has created many fine movements for everyone up to and including the Harry Winston Opus series. Now, this is a 2-barrel movement with 31 pivot joules, and it is a 7-day power reserve, as you noted from the dial side, 3 hertz beat rate. There is some adhesive on the case back. Don't worry, that is not dirt on the movement. It is quite nicely finished. An appealing 5-position high horology or chronometer style adjustment. Now you can also see here that this is a limited edition of 100 pieces. So this is number 48 of 100, and it uses the Eternite nomenclature, which signified a series of watches that were made in boxed pairs, a his and hers, if you will. I don't know whether this is the his or the hers, but you can see it's part of the Eternite series, and then a limited edition of 100. Quai de Bergues, the name of the watch, and the model, number 19S. It's made of what Czapek claims to be a harder and more corrosion-resistant and brighter white steel. So you can see that little piece of advertising right there. And then all of this water-resistant down to 50 meters, which is solidly more than the dress watch standard of 30. We have lovely vintage-inspired frosting across the bridges because, as a nod to the era of Mr. Czapek, we would not have had Côte de Genève at the time, so this frosting is historically true. We have these ratchet wheels atop the barrels, twin barrels in series, so despite the long power reserve, you don't wind up with a surge of fast running at the beginning with full wind, nor do you have a very slow time loss at the end as it winds down. A very flat torque curve with these twin barrels in series. Solarization on the crown wheel. You can see we have fired blued screws. We have a lovely mirrored bevel on the edges of all the bridges. We have a free-sprung balance with all the adjustments done using variable inertia blocks on the balance rim, making it both easier to adjust precisely and more shock tolerant. And then you could see that thanks to skeletonizations on the bridges, we have a full view of the drivetrain all the way down from our great wheel to our escapement. And then there's a separate bridge that's also media blasted for the escapement down below. And it is a very, very cool movement and a very, very cool watch. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.